Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. So the title of this video is, has the Ministry of Foreign Affairs been infiltrated by the WEF, or the World Economic Forum? This video is kind of a long time coming. It's also sort of the upward percolation, if you will, of a lot of thoughts I've had on this that sort of came together all at once when I was reading kind of about the Destination Thailand visa and also just sort of looking at the WEF tactics and things and sort of how these people operate. To be clear, I'm not making any criticism or anything about the Destination Thailand visa per se, but I was reading a recent article from the Pattaya Mail, which I'll get into here in a minute, and it sort of sparked a chain reaction in my brain, which kind of got me thinking a little deeper about this stuff and had me realize, wow, there could be more at play here. Let me get into it first. So I really did think of making this video, albeit tangentially, after reading a recent article from the Pattaya Mail. Article is titled, Thailand's Medical Insurance Rules for Foreigners Are a Muddle. That's pattayamail.com. Again, the thrust of this video, or of that article, goes a very different way. But honestly, as strange as it sounds, I thought of making this video after reading this excerpt. There is now a visa valid for 5 years known as the Destination Thailand visa, which is technically a tourist permit, but probably does not qualify for free accident cover as it offers an initial stay of 180 days. Me and Mr. Kenyon, the person that wrote this article, seem to be on the same frequency with regard to the Destination Thailand visa. It's made us pretty unpopular, and that frequency is, look, MFA created this visa, but MFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is not in charge of internal immigration. They don't deal with border checkpoints. They don't deal with extensions in country. When they first started talking about this, they said it'd be extendable in country. That has now vanished. Meanwhile, Ministry of Interior has remained silent regarding how they're going to deal with the DTV in any event to begin with. But quoting again, and I want to go back to this because again, I think it's worth pointing out, quote, there is now a visa valid for 5 years. Well, let's be clear, as we've discussed before, the face value of this ostensible visa is for a 5-year period. This is very similar to the old school non-immigrant 1-year visas, business visa, O visa, that we used to see fairly frequently. They were issued by honorary consulates abroad, and the visa itself was valid for a year, but upon entry, you were only granted 90 days each time you entered the kingdom. For the most part, that really wasn't a big deal, and immigration did not look askance at that because it was a 1-year period. You got 90 days, you had to do a border run, you came back in. 5 years, I'm not convinced that immigration is just going to look the other way. Oh, that's all fine. Again, this has been purported to be a 5-year thing, but in reality, I don't see at least how the mechanism up to this point is going to create sort of a smooth, uninterrupted 5 years. I think that's kind of nonsensical until you start looking at some of the things that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been talking about doing. Most notably, the electronic travel authorization, which the initial title of this video was going to be, has the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs trying to usurp Ministry of Interior's prerogatives? Because that's kind of what I see going on here. They're trying to create this electronic travel authorization, which, by the way, looks exactly like the old certificates of entry and the old Thailand pass, which we had to use due to the WHO telling us all we had to be shut down here in Thailand for years on end over nothing. And then meanwhile, it destroyed the tourism sector, and by destroyed, I mean literally decimated the tourism sector. I made the videos at the time regarding the tourism sector and how it was impacted by those policies. But now they're trying to bring this back for no particular reason. My opinion, again, it will ring fence Thailand in terms of its tourism sector and just make it harder to get into the country. But also one thing it does is it's run by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Again, this isn't going to be dealt with directly by immigration. Immigration ostensibly would still be manning the checkpoints, but again, ETAs would be dealt with by Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So when I was thinking of this 5-year talk about the DTV, which again, I'm not popular for this, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. These are going to work the way that people think they're going to work. We're going to find out when the rubber hits the road come the first quarter of 2025 in January, February, and March, when the first DTVs that were first issued start seeing themselves having to do border runs and seeing whether or not they're going to just be able to easily come back for that 180-day period. But I find it interesting that the MFA has been pushing hard on this electronic travel authorization and that it got postponed to precisely when the DTV, round about first, second quarter next year, right about the time that the DTV, the first people that got the DTV, start needing to come back in. This is important to point out because, again, this is WEF tactics. This is also communist Bolshevik tactics, which, by the way, the WEF took a lot of a lot of pages from those books. They also took a lot of pages from fascist books as well, because their entire raison d'etre is public-private partnerships. Not we use those to get to some other goal. No, that's the goal unto itself. Public-private partnerships, infinite fascism, communism into infinity. I mean, that's basically what the WEF wants. But these are their tactics. They circumvent. They make end runs. They go around. They do workarounds of a system that's already working in order to undermine, sidestep, and destroy it. That's what they do. And it's the reason for this rather odd thumb. I'll put a link in the description below to an actual clip from the movie The Big Lebowski, because I always kind of think of myself, lately I should say, I've been thinking of myself as that sheriff or chief of police in Malibu in Big Lebowski, where he's just like, I don't like you sucking around here bothering our citizens. You know, that's how I feel about the WEF, especially since last year, roughly since about August of last year. I've just noticed this inundation of this World Economic Forum nonsense, this frankly just communist kind of stuff. And this is a perfect example right here. An absolutely prime example of a way that they are trying to undermine an already pre-existing system that works pretty well toward maintaining the national interest of Thailand. Say what you want about immigration, and I get there's a lot negative to be said from the foreigner side. From the Thai side, it looks like it's doing pretty well doing its job, which is probably the reason they want to go ahead and circumvent and undermine and work around it, because they don't like that. And again, this DTV itself, I think, is also problematic. The whole notion of bringing in digital nomads and things at first I thought was kind of a good idea. But now as time has gone on and we've seen who's coming in, I wonder if that in and of itself is not another one of these international communist sort of WEF type tactics to bring in a bunch of outsiders from a given country and cause all kinds of destabilizing effects by having these outsiders come in and start disrupting the internal harmony of a given nation state. We're seeing it in the United States with the open border. We've seen it in the mass migrations, I would call it invasions, of Europe. We've definitely seen it in the UK, where demographically it isn't even really the same place as it was some 20 years ago. That being said, I don't really want to get into who's right and who's wrong. I understand there are people, they have a hard time and they have to move around. Look, I'm an immigrant. I do have a certain level of sympathy for that resonates with me. But when they are weaponized by a sort of supranational force in order to destroy nation states for their own ends, that's where I get concerned. And that's what the DTV even starts to look like to me. Again, they've been very nebulous about the work authorization associated with it, notwithstanding the fact that Interior has come out and said, yeah, look, you can't work in Thailand without a work permit. But again, this remote working thing, which was always nebulous, we're going to clear that up. I'm starting to think that might not have been the best idea, because it creates a situation. Are we going to be inundated basically here in Thailand by what amounts to economic refugees who basically can't take care of themselves in their own home Western countries? And let's not forget, this is not without precedent, and this was not, it's not like this wasn't thought out by the very type of people, the technocratic elite, if you will, who created the WEF and all this international communistic stuff to begin with. I can't remember who it was, if it was Jacques Attali. I believe it was Jacques Attali. It might have been Jacques Ellul, but I think it was Jacques Attali, who is a big technocratic sort of philosopher, who said the new boat people would come from the West. And again, how is that not what we're seeing with these so-called nomads and whatnot here in Thailand? Again, if you have the financial resources to be here in Thailand, you want to live here, you want to basically, if you want to work here, whatever, and you want to maintain that in a lawful way, I've got no problem with that. I have no problem with immigrants. I have no problem with travelers. I am one. I am an immigrant. I can't really criticize that, and I'm not trying to. What's bothering me is these newly created mechanisms for all this immigration, which isn't even the right word under these circumstances. These newly created mechanisms for immigration that have been created in these years, and the upshot of them. It looks it's very troubling to me that Thailand may have had their gates kicked open by a bunch of people that don't have Thailand's interests truly at heart, notwithstanding the fact they may say they do and they may operate within domestic politics here in Thailand. It looks to me like the gate's been kicked open. They're trying to basically circumvent the current immigration system here in Thailand through use of the electronic travel authorization to thereby effectively, if not mitigate, but just completely sidestep all of the enforcement mechanisms of immigration that were keeping undesirable aliens out of the country. And meanwhile, they're also seemingly trying to, again, circumvent or undermine the notion in Thailand that, hey, Thailand is for the Thais. It's not, foreigners have no right of abode, no right to work, no right to anything in Thailand. They have an ability to ask permission to do certain things in Thailand, like stay on a long-term basis in lawful status or maintain work authorization status, but they have no inherent right to be in Thailand. And again, they're muddying up these notions and then muddying up the mechanisms for maintaining, frankly, Thai sovereignty through use of her immigration apparatus by creating all of these circumventions that thereby undermine the very notions of why these institutions were invented in the first place. So the point I'm trying to make in this video, and the thing to take away, is at the end of the day, there's a lot going on with WEF policies being promulgated throughout the world. Again, I've seen this in earnest over the course of the last year, and I have to ask the question, is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs truly acting in the best interests of the Kingdom of Thailand?